Ramanji. Ladies and gentlemen, we are very pleased to have the gracious presence of Honorable FM Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman ji. Please join me in welcoming our esteemed dignitaries on the dais. We have Mr. Sanjeev Mehta, President FICCI and CEO and Managing Director of Hindustan Unilever Limited, President Unilever South Asia and member Unilever Leadership Executive Global Executive Board. We have Mr. Subrakant Panda, President-elect FICCI and Managing Director of Indian Metal and Ferro Alloys Limited, Dr. Anisha, Vice President FICCI and Managing Director and CEO of Mahindra & Mahindra Limited, and Mr. Arun Chawla, Director General FICCI. Ladies and gentlemen, as you're aware, this is FICCI's 95th AGM and very aptly themed India at 100, Amrit Kal, Sustainable and Inclusive. India is a little over 2 decades away from the centenary celebrations of our independence, and today we are standing at an important turning point, and it is in our hands to define the future. We are on the right course to accomplish our collective dream of a new India, one which brings prosperity to all. There is no doubt about India's immense potential, and we have the capability to bring ourselves closer to the status of being a developed nation by the 100th year of independence. Ladies and gentlemen, with these words, I would like to now request Mr. Sanjeev Mehta to kindly make his address.
Honorable Minister of Finance and Corporate Affairs, Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman ji, members of FICCI Presidium, past presidents, members of FICCI, colleagues from industry, members of media, ladies and gentlemen, Namaskar, good morning. I welcome you all to the 95th Annual General Meeting and the Annual Convention of FICCI. Let me start the FICCI Annual Convention by reading out the message we have received from our Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi ji. Here is the message of Honorable Prime Minister. It is heartening to learn about the 95th Annual General Meeting of FICCI and the release of India's Century Study Report on the occasion. Greetings and best wishes to everyone associated with this endeavor. The 21st century is widely hailed as Asia's century, and there are great expectations from India. The joint initiative by FICCI and McKinsey to release India's Century Study Report marks another step in this direction. Due to comprehensive reforms, the nation is attaining a new speed and scale in economic growth. While on one hand, policy interventions have empowered citizens and transformed institutions, there is also a passionate commitment towards minimizing government interference in the life of citizens and enterprises. Towards attaining this goal, we have implemented a series of initiatives, repealing outdated laws and needless compliances to enhance ease of living as well as ease of doing business. Today, the world looks towards India with trust and confidence to provide solutions to global challenges. Blessed with a wealth of natural resources, the innovative spirit of entrepreneurs and technological expertise of a skilled youth, India is being seen as an attractive partner in economic growth. We continue to march ahead with a firm resolve to strengthen the sentiment of becoming vocal for local. At the same time, we remain equally committed to make India a hub of global supply chains. While a lot is happening, a lot more needs to be done, ensure that a country reaches its full potential in every domain. I'm sure that the presence of business institutions and leaders at FICCI's AGM will lead to a vibrant and interactive dialogue. These deliberations will help draw up a futuristic roadmap to further enhance economic growth that is sustainable and inclusive. The next 25 years that constitute the Amrit Kal is an occasion to work with a spirit of oneness to fulfill the collective resolve of the people to build a strong, self-reliant India. I once again extend my best wishes to FICCI towards making the 95th Annual General Meeting a huge success. Narendra Modi, New Delhi. It is my absolute privilege to welcome Honorable Finance Minister to annual convention. Madam Minister, thank you for taking out time and being with us, more so considering that the Parliament session is on and all the work that must be underway for the forthcoming Union budget. We are grateful to you, Madam Minister, for successfully steering the economy despite the arduous challenges of the last few years. You have set in motion reforms that have strengthened the sinews of the economy while taking full care of the weaker sections of society. It's a pragmatic approach to policy making with focus on the immediate needs while also looking into the future. When I took over the reins of FICCI last year, the world was still grappling with the recurrence of new COVID variants that had put economic recovery at a huge risk. And when the COVID cloud started receding, the Ukraine-Russia conflict hit the world. The repercussions of all this have been felt across the globe, leading to supply chain distortion, shortages of commodities, price levels skyrocketing to records high, and the level of synchronicity witnessed in inflation and the subsequent monetary policy actions across the world have been unprecedented. The global economic environment remains very challenging, with muted growth across most major economies. India has not been immune to the global challenges, yet India has remained a bright spot, a shining star in this global scenario. India is today the fastest growing major economy in the world and is on the cusp of becoming the third largest economy. The transformational policy and reform measures taken by the government have helped strengthen foundation for India's long-term growth. The reforms initiated have set in motion increased competitiveness, enhanced transparency, and greater innovation. The focus on Atmanirbhar Bharat has provided a renewed thrust on domestic manufacturing, encouraging Indian industry to strive towards becoming global leaders. We are moving in the right direction and meticulously working towards the vision of creating a new India. An India with a plethora of opportunities, new emerging sectors, and immense growth potential. Today, we have a large startup ecosystem. We have been able to accomplish a unique success story through the unified payment interface, which is being lauded across the world, and we understand many countries would like to adopt it. And India, perhaps, is the only G20 country today which is well on track to achieve its climate commitments. These accomplishments give us confidence and courage. As a proud citizen of this country, I have no doubt in our potential and ability to change the future of our country. Madam Minister, we at FICCI have thus embarked on a unique and special initiative called India's Century. Over the course of last 6 months, we've been working with FICCI sectorial committees and industry leaders across more than 200 organizations, together with the partners McKinsey & Company, to establish a roadmap for India for the next 25 years. The collaborative effort has helped us identify some key actions, unlocks, and enablers that will help India achieve the vision of becoming a high-income economy by 2047. Madam Minister, I would like to share that this is not just a policy advocacy exercise. Right from the very beginning, the focus of this project has been to identify ways and means through which India, Inc. could contribute towards sustainable and inclusive growth. I firmly believe that industry's own growth and profits are intertwined with the people and planet approach. India is uniquely poised to build on its endowments and achieve broad-based prosperity. We envisage that by growing at 7.7% annually over the next 25 years, India can become a 1,500 lakh crore economy, have 60 crore jobs, increase per capita income sixfold to 1 million rupees, and alleviate poverty in its entirety. India's journey of becoming a developed nation can be hastened if we focus on technology-led innovations and work towards becoming a hub of innovations. This year, as part of the India Century initiative, we have also developed an innovation quotient to help Indian companies assess their innovation strength and capabilities in line with global practices. We are also working towards establishment of innovation clusters, Madam Minister. This will function as hotspots for incubation of new technologies and business models in line with our Prime Minister's clarion call to embrace Jai Anusandhan. The first cluster under consideration is in the domain of renewable energy, and in the next phase, we plan to cover smart mobility cluster and water adequacy cluster. These clusters will be set up as an ecosystem of multiple stakeholders: government, industry, startups, academia, and investors. I am confident that such innovation clusters will play an important role in driving innovation-led growth of the country. In closing, I would like to reiterate FICCI's commitment to be government's growth partner. India's current G20 presidency is a great opportunity to strengthen India's influence in the world. Over the next 25 years, we have a critical task of regaining India's glory. I'm confident that if we all work together, we will achieve this golden vision much before India's century. Thank you, and Jai Hind.
Thank you, Mr. Mehta, for sharing the Honorable Prime Minister's very important message for us on this auspicious occasion, and also for your warm welcome remarks and setting the context for today's annual convention and FICCI's AGM. May I now request you, Mr. Mehta, to kindly welcome Honorable FM with a green certificate on behalf of FICCI as a warm welcome gesture. It is indeed a noble tradition of welcoming guests at FICCI events with a green certificate. A grove of 10 trees are being planted at Sundarbans in West Bengal. Thank you, Mr. Mehta. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now present the FICCI and McKinsey white paper. For this, may I please invite on stage Mr. Alok Hirsagar, Senior Partner, McKinsey and Company, who has been spearheading this report along with FICCI. May I request Mr. Mehta to please present this report to Honorable FM and request dignitaries on the dais to please join in. As India enters into Amrit Kal towards a century of independence, FICCI and McKinsey have collaborated on an India Century Partnership, and as part of this project, a white paper titled India's Century Achieving Sustainable Inclusive Growth has been prepared. Ladies and gentlemen, she is India's first female finance minister in almost 5 decades, who has steered the Indian economy from multiple headwinds through focused reforms. The finance minister has always focused on strengthening the economy systematically, whether it is creating an ecosystem for digitization for startups, sharp focus on financial inclusion, e-assessments, or driving infrastructure growth. Each measure has had a long-term focus. These steps would serve as a backbone for the growth over the next few decades. Ladies and gentlemen, with these words, it is indeed my proud privilege to invite Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman ji, Honorable FM, requesting her to kindly deliver the keynote address.
Namaskar and good morning. First, let me congratulate FICCI on gathering today for an annual meet, which is the 95th. That's a big number, and I wish you many more 95th. Industry associations play a very important role in policy making, and India has always benefited from the inputs which FICCI has been giving consistently to all the governments, and also probably envisaging how, by the strength of policy, not just the industry benefits, but also projects the image of a country and places it in the world economic order in its due position. So the work that you do individually, members of FICCI, in your own area, in your own industry, is one thing, and the collective work that you do as FICCI in providing guidance and also inputs for administrations, and also the campaigns that you conduct world over, have always had a positive effect of sharing thoughts, of enabling better information about a country from where you speak from, and therefore create the right ecosystem for investments, for greater global order. And on that score, for the 95 years of service, I do commend the FICCI for their contribution, and I value it. Today, I'm not here to so much speak about what has been achieved, where the numbers are, how the world is looking, and therefore what I want the industry to do. I don't think I need to say anything. You're all on the top of things. And numbers are all with you anyway. But I'll just flag off a few thoughts which are in my mind, which perhaps are also in your mind, but when we exchange it in a forum like this, I expect it would have a lot more introspection, a lot more consideration from the point of view of policy making, and for you all to respond as and when you choose to. It is a reality that today, globally, we see a major reset happening, and a reset not just in terms of sourcing your inputs, not just looking at economies which are probably still reeling under the COVID-19, but also looking at the uncertainties, the other uncertainties which are really constraining our supply chains. So it could be a war in one area. It could be the after effect of the pandemic even now. It could be an unaddressed concern of lack of vaccines and therefore the exposure in a third area. And fourth, also because of the climate change, where countries are rapidly moving to adjust themselves with the nationally determined commitments, which are majorly going to impact on policy making, not just for India, for many other countries as well. Even with all this said, India has numbers which it can be looking at as a positive indicator for not just the government, but also for industries. I'll just put forth just one set of numbers and not go beyond that, because that is indicative of what is India's strength. I'm not talking about the macroeconomic fundamentals. All of you are quite well versed in the current position. For India, the current position is a position of strength. I don't need to highlight it again. But that one fact, which besides the macroeconomic fundamentals give us the strength, is a World Economic Forum data, which I think all of us will have to look at. And that reassures us that the 25 years to come, the Amrit Kal that Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji keeps talking about, has a lot more than what the name Amrit Kal just indicates, but it has got absolutely fundamental statistics that we need to know. And that is the World Economic Forum telling us that there shall be 140 million middle income households added to India's economy by 2030, and 14 million high net worth individual households by 2030 again. That one set of data tells us where the market and its potential lies. An industry, after all, will have to look at from where it expects demand to generate from. And if that is the kind of size we are talking about, most often industry wonders where market of a scale exists. Market of a scale is very difficult to obtain by sheer aggregation from 10 different jurisdictions. But here is one India, which by 2030, and that is not my data, it is not any research group's data, it is the World Economic Forum, where all of us engage, you in your capacity and government in its own capacity. understanding how the spread of the economies are world over. So that is something which I think India's Amrit Kal is waiting for you to optimally utilize. And that's very directly linked to what you're looking for, demand generation. So that is something which I would like to have you think about at your 95th annual meeting. Second is, technology is not what we talked about yesterday. Technology is what's going to be tomorrow, day after. And in that, for the scale and size that technology wants, especially the scope with which technology is spreading, and that is daily use technology, not just the frontier technology which might help in satellite building or nuclear fusion, but it's also daily technology where the end user is adept at using the technology with which you're providing service or products. And in that, I think India has shown the lead thanks to the government's favorable approach in providing technology and technology platforms as a public common good. So when government has provided absolutely robust framework for technology use, that actually gives the opportunity for those who are commercially wanting to exploit it without having to do R&D and invest in it. So the government has provided that leapfrogging advantage where trading communities or manufacturing communities all can reach the end customer with no additional cost and no additional infrastructure that you might want to use, but just latch on to this and you're there. So when a government has done that, and that is what we are going to be showcasing during the G20 summits through the year, it is also something which I would think industry should benefit from and also showcase it in your own forums. So India's achievement in terms of digital, can I say it this way, India's achievements in terms of the digital capabilities that we have, be it in payment, be it in the financial area, be it in health, be it in education, be it in banking. The achievements are absolutely stunning. It's not my self-praise, but it is something which makes many of those who watch our presentations amazed that we have achieved the technology, but we are also showing the scaled up technology in its ground by implementing it. And the government is definitely using every opportunity during the G20 to showcase it so that countries which are interested in any one of the silo of the digital achievements of India, they can benefit from. We are willing to share and talk with them. Equally, Indian industry of any size should familiarize itself with it and make sure that you're able to use it for your benefit. It gives leaps ahead, a kind of a jump which otherwise is not going to be achieved over decades. I think on that score, I would want the industry technology interface along with those bodies which are really spearheading this to be a lot more robust and active, to be a lot more real time. A common concern for all of us is climate. Only recently, a few days ago, I'm sure all of you all would have read it through the media, that there are countries who would want to fund their transition from not so green to green production of materials, production of items like steel. They want to fund their transition by raising tariff walls against countries which send their products as a matter of normal exports. So when India is going to, at least in some items, and I can straight away quote a common known example of steel, when you're going to export your steel, you will be facing tariff walls in the name of climate action tax. This is going to affect us. And this is not something which I'm speculating on. There are measures announced by countries. For India, therefore, both for meeting our nationally determined commitments and also for industry to quickly understand this necessity for resetting yourselves so that the tariff walls which are coming up newly in the name of climate change is something which we should face and be ready for. And when you're being ready, or when you're readying yourselves for it, there's a role that the government and the industry can play together. Diplomacy helps, so does policy, and so does any tweaking that we need to do in order to facilitate you to become a far more greener industry in your own specialized domains. So this challenge globally is not just of the climate change, but the challenges are also due to the policy reflecting the climate change which is coming across the world, for which we in our country are doing everything to adapt to renewable energy. But in the meanwhile, that transition has its own costs which are going to fall on us. I want industry to be fully seized of it, not just highlighting the burden which is going to fall on you. I'm highlighting it myself. But how do we reduce the burden of that costs which are going to come on you? As a government which should be conscious of the burden on industry, which are extraneous burden, I'm speaking about it myself. I would expect FICCI and the office bearers of FICCI to please go into the depths of these kinds of developments which are happening. I just quoted steel. Maybe I don't know of many more which are happening around the world. We need to have an approach, just as we have taken a very, very ambitious approach in giving nationally determined commitments, very ambitious ones which have been given by Honorable Prime Minister, both in Paris, which have been almost met, and in Scotland, which have been ramped up after the commitments which were made when Honorable Prime Minister was in Scotland. Post that too, we've given minor tweakings so that we can meet the ambitions. So I'm only expecting industry to tell me and tell the government as to how climate change itself is affecting you, which all of us have been talking about. But that climate change adjustments which many countries are doing are becoming a cost to us. How are we going to face it? Is something which I would like to hear from you after your deliberations. I spoke about the G20, where India is definitely, as a government, with the presidency in our side, going to showcase not just the digital achievements, but also the prowess of our youth, the skilling that is going on in a major way, the new sunrise sectors which are adding to India's economy will all be showcased during G20. There are, of course, Business 20, Youth 20, Women 20, Industry 20, so very many different forums under the Sherpa track, in which I'm sure the voice of India's industry, the concerns of India's industry, which are normally voiced, but the achievements of India's industry will have also a place, I would think, and therefore we need to hear about that in every opportunity that you have for the G20, not just in these forums which I've listed out under the Sherpa track, but also in each of your states. Every state is going to host one or the other meeting of the G20. Every one state. And wherever you are present, I would think there's an opportunity for you to speak up or put up information, share it during that meeting which happens in your respective states. We've been speaking and also acting on China +1. But now, as you are aware, it's also going to be Europe +1. So +1 is becoming now +2 in a way. So for us not to just talk about the +1, the government is acting. Government has brought in a lot of facilitation, tweaking of the rules, making sure that we sit and engage with those investors or industries which are wanting to move out in the sense, remain there and search for one more destination, or completely move out, each for its own. The industries are engaging with us. So if Vietnam, Philippines, or Indonesia are drawing a lot of attention, India is also drawing an attention, and you're seeing it in the way in which many of the industries are co-locating themselves. +1 is actually happening. But the new +1, which is sometimes very difficult to understand, but I can say, and you will understand this, I'm sure you recognize it already, the recession, the suspected long-drawn recession, which is likely to affect Europe, is not just going to affect your exports. It gives us an opportunity for many of the investments which are there for now looking for a different place from where their activities can continue to happen. So as much you're preparing yourself for a long-drawn recession in the Western world, the developed world, I would think it is also the best time for you to work out strategies for drawing those manufacturers from there to India. Even as their headquarters there, it might be useful for them to think of sourcing many things from here and producing from here, at least for markets which are in this part of the globe. But even as I say this, just a word in jest, if there are voices suggesting that India should not be focusing on manufacturing, but it should focus only on services, I'm sorry, no. We should be focusing on manufacturing. We should be focusing on newer areas of services, no doubt. The service sector, particularly the IT-driven service sector, has already made a big impact to the extent today 60% of our GDP is being contributed by them or more. But it is necessary for us to strengthen our manufacturing. And in that, I think the Indian startups have shown us one way which is going to be very suitable for Indian industries. They are doing all the innovation. I would seek industry to keep a close watch on the innovations coming out of the startups and their energy and the enthusiasm with which they're just moving ahead. If you're ready to adopt, if you're ready to commercialize, if you're ready to scale up that innovation which is coming out of the startups, I think we'll benefit ourselves, both the startups and yourselves. Together, India can benefit out of it. So the innovation, the speeding up with which the registration of patents are happening, the unicorns coming up with fantastic ideas which can be scaled up, are all there for you to pick up, are all there for you to scale up. And therefore, I would think manufacturing industry can benefit from the new energy of the startups, not just for the core industry of old India, but also for the frontier sunrise sectors. And therefore, the path for India's industry is now so enriched by government policy, the startups, the frenetic speed with which innovations are happening. The number of registrations on patents are amazing. They have increased at least threefold between 2014 and today. So it's for us now to ensure that they are not being patented for somebody else to pick it up and scale up. It's for us to pick it up and scale it up. It's very inspiring and motivating for me, especially at a time when we are readying the next budget for the country. A budget which will follow the spirit of the earlier budgets. We are going to set the template which was set earlier, but follow it and take it further for India's next 25 years so that at 2047, as was indicated by the Honorable Prime Minister, we look forward to our children living in an India which is 100 years free after the imperial rule, but live in an India in 2047 which will be far developed and far more a place where both our young and old can live together happily and in comfort. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I wish you all the very best. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Honorable FM, for your noteworthy keynote address. You lauded FICCI's contribution towards pertinent policy making and towards the country's economic growth, and thank you for all your valuable suggestions to go forward. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to now invite Mr. Subrakant Panda, President-elect FICCI, requesting him to kindly propose a vote of thanks.
Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman ji, Honorable Finance Minister and Corporate Affairs Minister of Government of India, members of the FICCI Presidium on the dais, past presidents, business leaders, members of FICCI, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to propose the vote of thanks for the Honorable Finance Minister. And it is indeed a privilege to have her in our midst today. And Madam, at the outset, I would like to thank you for taking time out from your busy schedule while Parliament is in session to be with us and deliver the opening remarks at the 95th AGM. It is indeed very motivating for us, and the comprehensive address that you made and the vision that you laid out and the guidance that you gave is something that we will certainly keep in mind, and I will more so do so in my upcoming tenure as President, and look to act on all the inputs that you gave us. The state of affairs of the Indian economy is a reflection of both its inherent resilience as also the astute decision making of the Finance Ministry under your leadership, Madam, and of course the guidance from Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji. And I think looking back, both the timing and the quantum of stimulus during the pandemic, right thing to have been done, but I can't say looking back because it was something that you did in real time. And I think it's something that is being praised today because the world over we are seeing that stimulus measures on steroids have led to inflation on steroids. But all this also happened while fully supporting those at the bottom of the pyramid, which really shows that this is a government with heart, which both focuses and prioritizes growth while also holding the hands of those who need the help most. At the same time, as the saying goes, that never let a good crisis go to waste, there was a sharp focus on both enhancing the ease of doing business as well as reducing the cost of doing business. And these are measures which will hold us in good stead going ahead as we look at Amrit Kal, which is really the period where India will come out and regain its position at the high table. Ma'am, at a time when developed countries around the world are dealing with high inflation and are concerned with recession, India certainly has emerged as a beacon of hope and optimism. And the consensus that it is a rare bright spot in the globe, I guess, got a little boost, got a little brighter with the World Bank recently raising growth projections from 6.5 to 6.9% for FY23 due to, and I quote, robust economic activity. It is, of course, a matter of pride that India will once again be the fastest growing large economy in the world. Inflation is now within the Reserve Bank's tolerance band and is likely to come down further going ahead. And that certainly gives the wriggle room which is necessary to focus on growth. So as we enter 2023, protracted geopolitical tensions and tightening global finance conditions, which you of course alluded to, and slowing external demand are certainly challenges to be countered. But I think it is fair to say that India is better prepared than it has ever been to deal with such short-term turbulence without losing sight of the huge opportunity that is there over the medium to long term. To that extent, we believe that the attention must and will be squarely on supporting growth. Ma'am, India is ideally positioned as an attractive investment destination thanks to all the reform measures and the various policies, the enabling policies that we talked about, that you talked about. And again, and I think that the G20 year, the year that India has its presidency, is both an opportunity to set the agenda as well as highlight, as you correctly said, the superlative achievements that we have had in digitization and other areas. And I think there is much that the world has to learn from us. And I recall, in fact, when we briefly interacted with you in Washington, D.C., that the ability of India to not only carry out these innovations, but do so on scale, which is what is mind-boggling and which is what has the rest of the world looking at us. Ma'am, you alluded to the upcoming budget for 2023-24, which will be the last full budget before the general elections. Indian industry has great expectations that it will be a growth-oriented budget, which will build further on the foundation of this government's initiatives over the last 8 years. And the media often uses the term dream budget, but I would prefer to use the term action-oriented budget, which is what you have done during your tenure as finance minister, to deliver an action plan and specific initiatives which will boost growth while also supporting the common man. I assure you of FICCI's full support in both collating constructive suggestions from our members as well as amplifying the government's policies which will take forward the India growth story. And my focus as President will be to continue the good work done by Sanjeev and my predecessors, but bring in a special focus on MSMEs and startups as well as the Northeast. These are all priorities I'm aware of the government, and I think these are areas which will also deliver sustained and inclusive growth, which is what we really need to achieve. Madam Finance Minister, I've had the privilege of accompanying you along with several senior colleagues of mine on a couple of occasions this year in your overseas delegations, and I look forward to the opportunity to do so in 2023 as well. I think India Inc. working in unison with the government lends credibility, and I thank you for the opportunity given to FICCI to be a force multiplier, and I certainly assure you of my best efforts and that of my colleagues to aid and abet the India growth story in the best way that we can and put our foot forward. Madam, Indian industry today is very confident thanks to the enabling environment, thanks to all the enabling policies which are there. We are no longer looking for protection. I think we are looking to go out and conquer the world. And thank you for giving us the foundation to do that. My best wishes to you and your team for the new year, especially as you look to head into a period of seclusion before the budget. And thank you once again for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Panda, for your warm vote of thanks and for reiterating FICCI's commitment in strengthening industry and working towards India's great growth story. Ladies and gentlemen, with this, we conclude the opening session. May I request all of you to please join me in extending once again a heartfelt thanks to Honorable FM for her time and presence here. We will now break for a short